Alright, so next topic is XOP and MTOM. So here we are going to learn what XOP MTOM is all about, and we are going to compare SOAP with attachment against the XOP MTOM, and why XOP and MTOM actually provides a standardized and more optimized way of actually dealing with the SOAP with attachment, actually compared to other schemes. Okay, so what is and why SOAP? I'm sorry, the XOP and MTOM. So the when you are sending binary data like a JPG file, you have two options. Okay, before XOP and MTOM. Okay, the option number one is you are going to embed base64 encoded of binary data, meaning you are going to convert the binary data into base64 the ASCII code, okay, and that included as part of the document, part of the data, part of the XML. Excuse me. And option number two is using SOAP with attachment. So in this case, you're going to make a reference from the SOAP to the attachment. Now, either of these options has an issue. The first, the base64 encoding, the issues of using base64 encoding is it will increase the size of the data because you are just converting binary data into ASCII data, which is going to increase maybe about 30 or 40%. Okay, and it does include the performance of overhead because you have to do encoding and decoding. So when you're sending the data, you have to encode into base64, and when the receiver receives the data, then it has to be reconvert back to binary data from base64 encoded data. So it has a problem of the size and overhead. Now the problem of using SOAP attachment doesn't have the problem of base64. But data is external to the document, and it is not part of the message info set. What it means is that inside your SOAP message, it doesn't use a standard way of actually referencing the attachment. So your XML parser doesn't know what to do with it. Well, actually, XML parser knows what to do with it, but the SOAP, yeah. Let me actually move on to the next slide, because it might actually kind of clarify the issues with the usage of SOAP with attachment. So XOP is an alternative serialization of XML that happens to look like a MIME, multi-part relational message, but the XML document is a root part. What it means is that it's now using XOP standard referencing. So it is actually genuine XML document. So this root part is very similar to XML serialization of the document, except that base64 encoded data is replaced by reference to one of the MIME parts, which isn't 64 encoded. So it lets you avoid the overhead while actually being compliant with the XML based format. Okay, so we're going to see examples of that using the actual capture of the message. So MTOM is the description of how XOP is layered on the SOAP HTTP transport. So XOP is basically representing binary data in XML compliant fashion. Okay, so I think the point I was trying to make in this case is that SOAP with attachment, it is actually using non-XML standard, non-XML kind of a standard way of actually making a reference to binary data. So that's the point I was trying to make. Now, by using XOP now defines a way, standard way of referencing the binary data. Okay. So MTOM is actually defining how XOP is going to be used on the top of SOAP HTTP transport. Okay, so typically when we say MTOM, we are talking about XOP over MTOM, or when we say XOP, we are talking about MTOM as well. So people actually use these two kind of interchangeably because, again, SOAP over HTTP is a primary transport protocol, using XOP. Okay, so if you compare SOAP with attachment against the MTOM, this is what we are going to see. So here, this is the SOAP with attachment, and it's actually this source is actually non-XML, non, I would say the SOAP standard. Okay, so I should have non-SOAP standard rather than the non-XML standard. So this is the reference here. Okay, now using XOP, now you're going to actually use XOP standard, and this is actually well understood. Okay, so oops, sorry. As far as the data is concerned, this is exactly the same kind of binary data. So there is nothing to be, in fact, actually changed, except that it's actually using the standard XOP include element to make a pointer to make a reference to the binary data. All right, so let's actually see the lab. MTOM. So here in exercise 1, we are going to receive a binary data in base64 encoded format and using data handler class in Java. And exercise 2, we are going to use the same binary data. This time we are going to use MTOM. And the exercise 3 is we are going to send and receive images using MTOM. And last exercise 4 is we are going to use WSIT configuration to enable MTOM. Okay. So in this exercise, when you run base64 server and client, so let me actually run these things. Okay, so we want to run WS monitor. So let me just WS monitor. Okay, so I'm running WS monitor. And we are going to build and run base64 server and and client application. And later on, we are going to just start it. Okay. So base64 server, run the application. So it'll probably, yeah, so here, let me see whether we have to, okay, not this one, this is that, okay. So here we are going to run it, and we are going to get the file. Now you specify the index of the file, so we are going to say get file number 1 and get file. And this is what you get. Okay, so basically what we get back is you can see it returns the file in base64 encoded scheme. So that's what we are going to see right here. Okay, all right. And then if you take a look at the WSIT document, yeah, we have attached service port binding policy, which is actually used in the binding right here. Okay, and if you take a look at the XML, we are actually using the base64 binary type. Okay, so that's how it's actually using the base64 encoding. Okay, and if you take a look at, if you open the if you run the binary code, I mean the client code, and it will just display, some like this. Okay, all right. So if you observe this one again, this is what you saw, right? Okay, yeah. So that's what you're going to see. SOAP. Basically base64 is being sent back and forth. Okay. So the server-side code, we are basically reading the JPG file, and we are using data handler, which understand how to handle this JPG file as a MIME type. Okay, so the usage of the data handler class is actually data handler class is actually provided Java email package a long time ago to handle this to handle the MIME type. Okay. Client code is nothing that much different, so you're just trying to get the file and then try to display the results. So I mean, because it's JPG file, that's the reason you're actually seeing some kind of the characters like this. Okay, so that is actually usage of the base 64. Okay, exercise 2, we are going to actually do the same thing. We are using data handler class, but this time we are going to use MTOM. So let's actually try to use the MTOM. So MTOM server, so the one that we are going to use, the MTOM server and MTOM client. Okay, so again, I think we are going to actually do the same thing. We are going to we're going to see the WSDL document first, and basically you can see we are using WSP policy, and we are using what is called the optimized MIME serialization. This is basically indicating MTOM. We are basically using MTOM. Okay, and this is actually the same thing. Okay, so you can see policy is here, the MTOM policy, and optimize MIME serialization as a sub-element. And now if you can test the service with the click 1, now what we get back is this is actually, oh yeah, so this is, yeah, so you can see the data is still being transported inline in base 64 encoded format. This is not what we expected, right? The reason is in order to enable MTOM, the client has to ask for it too. Okay, so in this case, JAX.S test client did not ask for the MTOM, so that's the reason the server is still actually send back this code. Okay, so I was kind of, for a moment, what is going on? Okay, so if you actually run the MTOM client, so let's actually run that guy. So we'll say 1, and it's still sending in base 64. Okay, so that's not what we expected, and the reason is because client has to ask for it. Okay, so if you actually so we have to actually rebuild the client. Okay, because the testing is not going to rebuild the client, so we have to actually rebuild this. In this case, if I just call the MTOM, it's going to actually start from scratch. Okay, so I'm going to actually run it. Alright, so now if you actually capture the traffic, this is the case. Okay, now you can see this is a request, and here is actually using MTOM, the reference. So here inside, I'm going to actually use the documentation here. Okay, so here it's using XOP include. Okay, and the content type is XOP XML, and then it actually make a reference to this guy. Okay. So this XOP is understood as a standard. Okay, and then in the case of the code, basically the way that you want to use the MTOM is basically using MTOM annotation. Okay, so that's the only difference between exercise 1 and 2. Okay, and client code. Again, you have to actually specify MTOM feature. So this is something that that has to be actually set on the client level. Okay. And exercise 3, now here we are going to actually send images using MTOM. So here we are going to actually do the same thing, and you can see the same optimized serialization with MTOM policy right here. I should actually emphasize this one as well, is actually used. And schema location is schema location here. Okay, so here base64 binary, and when you actually run the client, we actually get back, and let's see when we actually run the application, and if you capture it's actually making a reference. So if you actually take a look at this, it's using XOP include. Okay. And server side again, usage of MTOM. Okay. Client, we still have to actually set the MTOM feature as part of the port object. Okay. Now the exercise 4 is we are going to actually build and run Hello web service using MTOM. So here, basically we are going to recreate. We are going to create the so that is actually test the JPG file, and we're going to use the data handler, and you can you can actually see the content types that's supposed to be like a JPG file and things like that. And then this is the client-side code, and now here we can actually configure the Hello Web Service using web service attributes, okay, and then set MTOM. So this is basically setting the MTOM. Okay, so if you have Java code, in this case, this is a web service that does not have MTOM, right? So if you want to actually set this guy with the MTOM with the configuration, then you can do that as well. So when you're using @MTOM, that's actually probably bottom-up approach. Okay, even if you are using bottom-up approach without the MTOM, you can still configure, and that configuration is going to be in the WSIT configuration file. Okay, so that the exercise 4 is for that example is going to use this edit web service attribute, and again it will create configuration file, WSIT configuration file. So that is basically WSIT my package hello configuration file, and that's where it's going to actually have some kind of MTOM binding. Okay, and this will be merged into the final WSDL document when it gets deployed. Okay, so and then you run the application, then you should actually have MTOM WSDL document as expected. Okay, and so this is the still base64 binary type. Okay, so basically whenever you're actually sending binary type, then you can actually specify like this. Okay, and then you can recreate the client application. Okay, and now in this case, the client application still have to deal with the MTOM feature. So that's basically what you get back. Okay, and so this is still multi-part. So MTOM messages are still multi-part. That didn't get changed. The only thing that is changed in the SOAP message, the reference is going to be through the XOP include. Okay, so that's basically the only difference. Okay. All right, so I'm going to give you guys about the 15 minutes, and let's also have 30 minutes lunch time. So we will be back on 5 minutes after 1 o'clock.